Roger, go for deploy.
Boom! Hey, welcome back to Adventure Radio. This week on the show, guys, Lucas Parker. I'm moving fast through this. Lucas Parker on the show, 6-time CrossFit Games champion, absolute Heath legend of a man. We had him on the show for a good 2 hours, guys. Bill, did you enjoy it?
What was that last word?
Do it.
Tommy's in a rush to get out of these intro outros, apparently. Hence the 16,000 words per second. Yeah, it was great. I had heaps of fun with Lucas and learned a shitload of stuff.
Yeah, it was a lot. Nutrition, aliens,
12 things.
CrossFit.
Yeah. Pretty much. Nutrition, aliens and CrossFit.
Yeah.
But had a great time with Lucas. You guys are going to love it if you're into health and fitness and anything really. It's just a really good chat.
Good dude. So loves a beer.
Loves a beer.
I don't know.
So guys, this podcast is brought to you by True Pride. True Pride are a wealth creation service who work with ambitious individuals and families looking to take control, worry less, and get ahead. If you're looking to get ahead, take control, True Pride is a wealth coaching business for you and will provide you with all the tools you need to fast track this. So what True Pride are, guys, it's a wealth coaching business. So at the moment, me and Tommy are working with them and they're just busting through our budget. So they'll go through, links up a program called CashFit will link up with all your bank accounts and you'll be able to see exactly where you're spending your money and where you can make little wins and big wins. Mm-hmm. So easy things without changing any of your lifestyle. You should be able to save about $150 a week. This is Craig's average. This costs $97 per month, so it's a $600 a month saving for $97 a month. And it's also a $297 joining fee. That shit is waived. See you later if you join with us through our link www.truepride.com.au/ADVF.
VF.
So really check it out, guys. If you're having problems with your budget or you want to save for a holiday or you just want to get your money working better,
totally.
Then True Pride's for you. We're also supported by Carve. Carve is a company that specialises in anything digital, from building apps, designing logos, automating a business, down to setting up your next event. Carve is a partner for you to get more time to focus on the things that you love and to scale your business. So what Carve is, guys, it's where I get my VAs from. So basically I have all my trip staff. I have Tommy, I have myself, and then I have 3 VAs. So 2 of them, VAs mean virtual assistants. So an assistant that works abroad. These guys work in the Philippines. 2 of them are full-time, work on Adventure Travel. And one is Alvin, who listens to the show because he produces it for us.
Yep. Whether he likes it or not.
Yeah. So guys, this is the offer. The offer with Carve is head to www.carve.ph/ADVF and you get 10 free hours on any project or any VA that you want to set up. I recommend getting yourself, if you're a gym owner, if you're an entrepreneur, get yourself a VA, even 20 hours a week. You will get so much of your life back, and you pay $6 US an hour, $8 Australian. It's good money over there. The guys in the Philippines get looked after well, but it actually costs you next to nothing. Check it out, www.carve.ph/ADVF. We're also brought to you by Adventure Fit Travel.
What's Adventure Fit Travel, Bill?
Adventure Travel is a travel company for the fitness community. So we've just released our Bali trip with Carl Paoli, guys. It's in April next year. Gymnastics workshops with Carl, surfing, whitewater rafting, diving, a little bit of partying even maybe. It's going to be so much fun. Mm-hmm. Last year was sick. This year it's going to be even sicker. So check that out at www.adventurefittravel.com. We are... That's it, actually.
I think it is.
That's it. Enjoy the show. Alrighty, guys. Welcome to Adventure Fit Radio. We are sitting here with the man, the beard, the legend, Lucas Parker. And Tommy is on my left, as always. Before we throw to Lucas and introduce him properly, we're going to start off with Tommy's tribute.
Excellent. Alrighty, welcome aboard. Now, Lucas just told me he's a little bit nervous, so I'm excited about this. Now, Mr. Parker, are you a fan of Nirvana?
Nevada.
Nevada. Are you a fan of the state where Las Vegas is? The grunge band.
I passed through it once on a layover. I had 8 hours to go visit the Strip, and it was underwhelming.
Excellent. Yeah.
So tell me all about it.
Yeah. Well.
What about Nirvana?
Yeah, Nirvana. The grunge band from the 90s.
Okay, we're off to a rough start here.
I'm still learning to interpret the Australian accent, apparently. Yes, I've heard one or two Nirvana songs.
Nevada. Very true. Alrighty. Well, this is a rendition of Polly. It's one of my favourite songs, so we'll see how we go.
All right.
Well, Lucas, it's a pleasure. I can't believe you're really here. Now, this may sound a little weird. I'm sexually attracted to your beard. I can't describe. Sorry. I can't describe. I don't know why. It could be the red on such a head. Let me have a sneaky touch. I swear I won't get up too much. Very good. Well, Lucas, it's a pleasure. I've watched you at the game so many times. You're an athlete that is well revered. I'm sexually attracted to your beard. It could be the curls, you know they get the girls. It could be the length, you know they get the girls. I wish I could grow one like you. I just ate a fucking mushroom stew. Welcome aboard.
I am touched in more ways than one.
Yeah. Well, physically, after we give it a sneaky touch.
That was one of the best. That was one of the best trivia you've done. You hit a low patch there for a while, but that was
I did hit a low patch.
That was fucking exceptional.
Now I'm back on.
Lucas, welcome to the show.
Thank you for that very unique introduction. I'm happy and disturbed to be here.
Yeah, that's right.
Hey, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing in Australia?
Well, I'm 27 years old. I'm from Victoria, BC, on the west coast of Canada, and I've fallen into a bit of a travel routine. So I'm now here in Australia. I'm putting on some barbell workshops that I've put together, and I'll be competing in the Torian Pro in 2 weekends' time.
Cool.
Awesome.
So you were saying before we started the show that you like to, once game season's over, so you're a six times games athlete now,
This
yeah?
year was number 6.
Yep. And then you were saying that you like to take a little bit of time off. Do you always do a bit of traveling, or you just like to relax, or how do you normally do it?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I started competing when I was like 20 or 21. So the professional athlete lifestyle is not necessarily conducive to the young 20-year-old lifestyle.
No.
So I basically try and combine all my sort of real life activities into 1 month after the games, which is, hanging out with my friends, drinking some beer, staying up late,
Yep.
playing video games, whatever. Not really focusing on training or career stuff. And also from a performance perspective, like trying to get some recovery in and sort of break that cycle of, for lack of a better word, physical abuse that an athlete can potentially be putting themselves for 12 months at a time. And if you look at, the span of a moderate to long games athlete's career, say 4 to 6 years, 4 to 6 years is a long time to not have any time off.
Sure.
If we contrast this with, say, an Olympian's cycle, the 4-year Olympiad, right, is much more forgiving. So you can go to the Olympics, win a medal, whatever, and then you could take a whole year off and do nothing, sit on the couch for a whole year, and then you would still have 3 years to get back in shape and win another medal. Whereas the CrossFit season continues to become more and more jam-packed with activities. They've added the Invitational, they've added the team series, so they're trying to sort of fill the schedule to keep people excited and active, which is awesome for the community. But if your goal is to win the CrossFit Games, you need to take some time off somewhere.
For sure. So do you ever get things that you kind of have to pick and choose? You have to really look at it and say, look, that's probably not best for me as a person and for me as an athlete. That's pretty hard.
Yes, learning to say no is something my whole life I've been working on, but especially when it comes to amazing opportunities in the fitness world. Some just pop up on your plate and you have to decide sort of right there, like, well, am I going to do this now? What are the pros? What are the cons? So based on how things went for me last year, I think I did last year maybe a little bit too much travel too close to the start of the season. So I'm trying to get most of that done and out of the way. Not necessarily out of the way like I want to get it over with, but I want to enjoy my experiences in that aspect earlier in the off season, so that I have a more steady chunk of like dedicated training to get me ready for the season.
Do you find that doing that actually really helps you when you are so focused leading up to the games and things you're competing at? Like I find for me, and I'm obviously nowhere at the games level, but when I take time off, I'm really enjoying, like you said, like hanging out with mates, drinking beers, all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But I also fall into the habit of wanting to train a little bit as well. Like I can't just take all time off and then do all the training as well.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So here's how I differentiate that, or how I deal with that, is I make a distinction between training and exercise, right? Training is something that is, preparing you for a specific event or task or stimulus. And it can potentially be a beatdown. You can feel worse after training than when you started the session. Whereas exercise is something that's supposed to make you feel nice. It's supposed to be good for your health and wellness. You're supposed to feel better after exercise than before you started. So these days I am exercising as opposed to training. And that kind of mentally just helps me guide myself in terms of what I should be doing, right? Like I don't need to be getting down on myself, really pushing myself into a deep hole. That's not necessary this time. I want to feel as good as I possibly can physically every day. Otherwise, I think I'm starting the season off on the wrong foot. Otherwise,
Totally.
For sure. So you've always been, in my eyes, and I haven't really, I've been really busy the last couple of years. Haven't really followed your social media accounts, to be perfectly honest. But I always used to,
come on. All right, podcast over. I'm heading out.
Yeah, that's right. I'm done.
But I used to always see on your YouTube channels, maybe I don't know if you have YouTube, but I used to see videos floating around always. Maybe they were CrossFit produced, I don't remember. But it was kind of showing the way that you go out and train. You're very active in the outdoors. Is that how you do a lot of your training? And like, what are the benefits there for you?
Yeah, yes and no. So over the years, I think that's evolved a bit. Earlier in my career, that was definitely a big part of my training. I would, if I was planning out a week or a month or a yearly cycle, I would make sure that I included some, I call them just yard sessions. This is in my parents' backyard. They had a nice,
beautiful
big
house.
Space. Yeah, beautiful. I
Been
grew up there.
Oh, it's not weird.
I've seen it.
Yeah,
grew up there.
Your mum and dad's house. Your sister's bedroom is really, really...
The furniture from the flower bed looks fantastic.
Sorry, go on.
And so just as an outdoor space for a kid, it was amazing to grow up there, just being able to, play sports in the yard or just step outside the yard and be, down on the shore and be able to hike and play around on the rocks and stuff. And then as I got more into obviously CrossFit, then I started accumulating some equipment there and would do some sort of strongman style stuff. And that I think is great for like general athletic development, physique balance, muscular balance. But at the same time, it's not really sport specific.
Yeah.
So it's a great off-season activity. But when it comes to performance in the open, performance in the regionals, those movements are essentially irrelevant. They maybe come into play a little bit at the games, but if you're banking on your odd object skill to win you the CrossFit Games, you're probably approaching it a little bit wrong. So especially the past couple of years, as I've not been achieving the results that I have been hoping for or expecting of myself at the games, that sort of unique odd object training has definitely taken a back seat. I need to be doing more triathlon training and like general kind of CrossFit Metcon kind of stuff,
Yeah. So Lucas, you just mentioned earlier how you haven't been performing as well as you would like with the pressure that you put on yourself to perform hasn't quite lived up to your own standards. And why do you think that is? Has anything changed? I remember the first few years you had really you improved your placings, I believe, at the games, and then now. Obviously, last year wasn't your best year. What do you think you need to change to get to where you want to be?
There's a few changes that I made last year to get my best placing I've had at the games, which I think was 14th or something like that. So the year before that, so 2014 was my worst placing I've had at the games. Made a few changes, got my best placing I've had at the games. So definitely a good learning experience there. And those changes were still in place this year. But for a number of reasons, I wasn't quite able to sort of actualize the sort of full potential through the year. everyone has challenges in life and in training. So I have a few injuries pop up. My partner's father passed away.
Right.
There was a lot of sort of travel and stuff involved with that. So it wasn't. It was a rocky. There were ups and downs. So I had some really great points in the year, but there were some lower points in the year as well that I hadn't really experienced in the past. So it was a lot less consistent than I've ever had before, and I wasn't quite able to roll with those punches quite as well. Mm-hmm. So what I'm hoping for this year, what I'm going to be, well, not just hoping for, but trying to actively create for myself, is a more consistent level sort of push of progress through the year, because I have experience now, 6 years of experience. I think I know a little bit about training, and I know a little bit about how my body responds to training. I think I respond well to training that's designed nicely. I have figured out a few nutritional things and hydration things that are going to help me. And I'm living now in Ottawa with my partner Lindsay, and we have a good crew at my new gym, CrossFit NCR. This is Paul Tremblay. He's a Canadian Games athlete. He was on the team with me in San Jose at the Invitational there. So there's a few pieces in play now that I think are going to be really positive for me, and I'm excited to see what I can achieve.
So with Paul, and so you didn't have him as a training partner before?
No,
just kind of kicked off?
Yeah, I've always been kind of a lone wolf when it comes to training. I enjoy sort of training by myself, and I also get a lot of anxiety about like trying to accommodate other people's schedules, which is a life skill that I really need to work on to be a grown up. But I like to sort of be
Plenty
able
of time to be a grown up, mate.
Yeah,
that's right.
I'm still very much in 15-year-old boy mindset, trying to run a business and
I'm still at Power Rangers.
You got space for one more?
Yeah, that's right. Come along.
And so in that vein, I've never really had like legit sort of games level training partners. You look at the guys in the States, and I think they have a lot more. I guess it's easier for Americans to just kind of hop around and train with each other and stuff. But I'm sort of isolated on the west coast of Canada, Vancouver Island, and it's tough to get like a big crew of dudes together to throw down more than once or twice a year. And so being in in the East, landlocked with other games athletes, that might be a reality for me now, is that I get to sort of experience a bit more of that push through the year. And it's something that I am not really feeling positive about, but I know in my mind that it'll be something good for me if I can overcome my hesitancy to sort of have training partners. Yeah.
Have you ever thought about training with different people? I'm not sure if you've done this, but training with specialized people. So you may have a weightlifting partner or a gymnastics partner, or even something like we were talking about earlier before the show, like a meditation partner, or like someone who's into breathing and stuff. Have you ever gone down that path at all?
Not in practice, no, but I really like the concept, because the original sort of idea of CrossFit, or one of the sort of thought experiments they put out there was like, okay, well, we'll have a competition. There'll be a weightlifter, a gymnast, a runner, and a CrossFitter. And the weightlifter will win weightlifting, but the CrossFitter might come second. The gymnast will win gymnastics, but the CrossFitter might come second. The runner will win running, but the CrossFitter might come second. So across, on average, they're going to always have the CrossFitter always have someone beating them, but they'll also always sort of come out on the whole above on average. And so applying that to training, right? Like, yeah, I think it'd be really cool to have someone who's like elite and like legitimately totally above your level, but has like perfected their discipline, and you can just sort of like sponge off that and leech off that, and then apply that to your training and development. I think would be really cool. I don't know if there's any gym that has that scenario. I think there's a few training camps that people are putting out there where they'll bring in
Power Monkey training. I think they do something like that, don't they?
Definitely.
Probably shouldn't mention my competitors.
Yeah.
I'm going to take that out and actually no, I'll just besmirch their name as we go. Keep it rolling.
That's right.
I'll just talk bad about them.
That was shit.
And to plug another one of my events, I'm actually going to be doing a Euro tour in November. And I'm going to be teaming up with Sean Lind, who's a gymnastics coach. He's worked with a number of games athletes like Sam Briggs and Camille and a number of others. So I'm going to be sort of coaching some weightlifting, and he's going to be coaching some gymnastics, and we're going to sort of team up for the attendees over a 3-day camp. So it's going to be a really sort of intensive, specialized, segmented camp, which will be a lot of fun for everybody, I think.
Awesome.
We're going to be doing one of those in Dublin, another one in Almere, which is just outside of Amsterdam.
Yeah, cool. We'll put all the we can put the links to all that stuff in the show notes.
Totally.
Whatever. But
Totally.
so with this, what you're doing, this world tour, you're doing your seminars over here. How does it go as an athlete financially? Are you a full-time athlete?
Pretty much.
Yep.
Full-time athlete, full-time gypsy at this point, I think. Yeah.
And does that actually going and doing these training camps in Dublin and all around the world? Do you do that to supplement your income, or do you do that because you actually want to do that? You want to see Dublin, you want to travel as well? Maybe a bit of both.
A little bit of both. So in the earlier years, I was doing a lot of just local coaching. So at one point, I think I had 3 sort of part-time coaching jobs: one at the CrossFit box, one at the university gym in Victoria there, and then one at my old high school gym, just sort of supervising in the fitness center, as well as being sort of full-time training, full-time student. So I had a lot going on all in Victoria, which was great. But now I think I get a little more bang for my buck by traveling and touring and doing sort of weekend events, workshop style, as opposed to sort of hourly coaching. For a number of reasons, I find that to be more effective. In some ways, I feel the instruction is more effective because if someone is one of your regular, say, students or athletes at the gym, and they sort of hear the same stuff from you day after day, week after week, a lot of it can kind of go in one ear and out the other. But if someone is intensively focused for a couple days in a row, you have their full attention, they're excited to see you, they're probably going to absorb a lot more of the of whatever nuggets of wisdom you happen to be able to provide. So I get more excited about that interaction because I feel like I'm able to contribute more to someone's development. And if that happens to be happening in Australia or the Dominican Republic or Dublin, then that's really cool for me as well. But yeah, financially, that's mostly how I support myself. It's basically a split between like prize money, contract endorsement agreements, and my own workshop tours and t-shirt sales and things like that. So I guess you could say I'm self-employed or an entrepreneur or a gypsy or a CrossFit hobo. But
Whichever one you choose.
Madman.
Honestly, like people ask, why do you do this? Why do you, do what you do, compete at the games, whatever. And part of it is because I kind of am deathly afraid of having a real job.
Totally.
I did the university thing, and even just sitting in class for a few hours a day, I found challenging.
Oh, it sucks.
Just physically, like honestly, like I think I'm allergic to sitting.
It's a thing. It's definitely a thing.
It's a thing.
I break out in hives.
I was a tradesman myself for the longest time, and then I worked in the fitness industry, and now since starting Adventure Fit, everybody thinks that because Adventure Fit travel, everyone thinks that I go on holidays for a living all day, every day. Whereas I only go on a very small portion of them. They're highly stressed overseas work jaunts, really. Right. Although they can be very fun. Yeah. But I sit at a desk myself for the most part, and it sucks.
Yeah.
I need to find some way to get around it. I need to get really successful so people sit at my desk and do my work for me.
Well, you just travel.
Because, I'm with you. I can't. I mean, people work at a desk their whole lives, It's a job. You have to have a job. You have to make money and earn a living. But if I can escape the desk, I'll be doing it.
So Here's a theory.
Yeah, go on.
So, how humans obviously naturally we've evolved and all this sort of stuff, and where our body is made to sort of stand up and move around and all this thing. Are the only reasons that people sit to a desk because they actually don't enjoy it, but it's just a means to an end, just for work. But really, everyone wants to keep moving because we're animals. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Have I just...
What's your point?
I don't really have a point.
What's your theory?
The stream of consciousness.
No.
So the theory is that I don't have a theory.
I thought you were going to say, when you started going down the evolutionary terms, I thought you were going to say, obviously, we went from walking on all fours to
quadruped or arboreal, which I believe is swinging in the trees, right?
Yeah. And then we became bipedal and we're standing upright. I thought you were going to say that we might be evolving to be like sitting on our bum, animal scraping our ass along the ground or something.
Well, I mean, some have already evolved that way, and I'm.
I really like paleo thought experiments and sort of talking about what it was like back in the good old days or in the caveman days. But that's kind of all they are, is thought experiments. And yes, we can make inferences from like skeletal remains and like the archaeological sites and stuff. But like, I think there are probably a number of like lifestyles when it came to paleo living, right? Like some people were probably like walking and exploring and foraging all day. But some people, if they happen to live in like an island paradise, were probably lazing around quite a bit. And I think either way is probably quite healthy, but like I like to laze around a lot. But I think if I were to try and make that, healthier or more paleo, it would just be literally eliminating chair-like objects. So just putting like a flat mat on the ground or like a pile of pillows. So like, yeah, you can still relax and lay down and whatever, but you're just not in that very uniquely damaging sitting position, which is, maybe silly to break it down and make it that simple. But I think that's probably one of the reasons why people have, body pain and blah, 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 is like, it doesn't mean you have to be doing fitness all day.
No.
But just if you're chilling out, like try not to be sitting in a chair.
Yeah. But in some ways it's just very uniquely Western. I mean, you have a look at a lot of the Asian cultures, and when they're eating dinner, they're kneeling down, and they and then they're standing up and they chill out in the squat position. And obviously some of they're the best weightlifters in the whole world. It's bizarre how we've made life, so much easier, but so much more physically damaging in the same extent,
So and I try and bring some of that to like just my awareness at meals and stuff. So when I'm at home, I'll often I'll just eat breakfast on the floor, either in a kneeling position or sitting in like a straddle or whatever with a little like, I'll use a footstool, but I'll put my plate on that as a table instead of sitting on it or resting on it. Things like that kind of try and stem the damage.
The bleeding.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
So getting back into the finances of being an athlete, like what about? Do you think it's getting easier for guys? Say someone's 1 or 2 years into being a games athlete. They're not particularly top 10, the super marketable guys outside of the top 10.
Right.
Is life pretty hard for a CrossFit Games athlete getting by that wants to be treat themselves as a professional athlete, or is it getting easier?
My assumption would say would be yes. I'm kind of in the middle ground there, where obviously I don't have the elite level contracts of someone like Rich Froning or Camille, but at the same time, I think I'm obviously surviving, but I'm definitely not.
You are very marketable.
Not well off. I would agree with that, but I see a lot of comments online about like. And people really do assume all the games athletes are marketable. So people really do assume that they're all loaded with endorsements and sponsorships. And I've seen a number of comments. It's like, oh, he's a games athlete. He's must be rich or whatever. Why can't he do this or that? And it's like, well, no, that's actually not how it is. Like, I know, like, so when I drove across Canada from Victoria to Ottawa, like I leaned on my CrossFit connections and I was like, hey, can I crash with you guys? And I would show up on someone's doorstep at 11 o'clock at night after driving all day and rely on their hospitality to get me through the next day, right? So I'm not like staying in expensive hotels as I travel across the country. So that's not my reality. So for someone who's like an entry level athlete, in some ways it's getting easier to make a go of it because if you're even doing well at regionals now, like you're pretty freaking legit. And especially even from a physique standpoint, right? There are people who are like doing regionals that look amazing and they'd be happy to model like apparel or products or whatever. So I think it's pretty easy at this point to get ambassador style agreements with companies, but at the same time, while those opportunities are increasing, the level of full-time commitment to do well in CrossFit and make it to the games is also increasing. So, years ago, and maybe still a little bit right now, you could maybe have a full-time job. There are a couple athletes that have a full-time job and that are also making it to the games, right? I don't know if you guys follow Margot Alvarez online.
Yeah.
She's awesome. Super nice girl. And she's like building and running like a winery.
Really?
It's like manual labor all day, like, and it's like a full-time thing.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And then like Val Voberl, one of my original favorite CrossFit athletes, is like a school teacher, has kids. She trains, I think, like once a day. And she's, done very well at the games.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I feel like those days are kind of past, if not now, in the next 5 or 10 years, that's going to be no longer a reality. All the athletes are going to be have been doing CrossFit, competing since they were like 9 or 12 years old. They're going to be loaded up with sponsorships and endorsements. They'll probably all be dumb as a brick because they've dropped out of school to do CrossFit. So it'll be interesting. It'll be an interesting landscape.
Yeah, I think it's. I've always thought of CrossFit as crazy because, like I said to you earlier, I haven't really been involved in CrossFit for the last couple of years, but I started it probably 4 years ago when things were a lot different, and back then it was like the guys at the top were. I don't think the marketing and the sponsorship, the money there had kind of evolved to where it is now, obviously. But the level of training to be at the top was still so high. Like compare what you do to professional sport like Australian rules football or NFL or basketball. Like some of these schedules are crazy. Like basketball play a lot of games, I suppose. Baseball play a lot of games. But the level of training it's probably at or above most professional sports. Would you agree?
I don't have any personal experience to sort of go off of that other than watching something like HBO's Ballers where these football players are like spending most of their time partying and hanging out and show up to practice and cut their checks, right? So that sounds like a lifestyle I would do. And you know what? Honestly, I feel like I picked the wrong sport. I should have gotten into darts.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was a big thing, but I saw darts on the happening in the UK on TV. And they're making tons of money for literally doing like plyometric tricep extensions.
Yeah. That's for sure.
It's a sport where you can like literally drink beer and smoke a cigar while performing in your sport.
And you
I
get
don't
all
know
the
if the
girls,
groupies would be the same level though.
Oh, but
I bet they would be.
Like.
I don't know.
Oh man, I wish.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I've always wondered what goes on there because
in darts.
Yeah, in darts. No, in the financial thing. Hey, let's talk a little bit about training and stuff. So, Lucas, when you go back, you like to have a couple of months off, lay pretty low, do a little bit of stuff. When you go back, when do you kind of go back, and what does your training look like?
In the past, I might actually schedule that out. So I say, okay, I'm ramping up for this date or whatever. Or if I know I am doing a competition in December or January, I'll maybe build a program up for that. But at this point, I kind of want to like just ride things out, chill, lay low until I actually feel like excited and anxious to train again. So I want to start my next season on the right foot. I want to start with the attitude of, okay, I'm ready, let's do this, as opposed to the attitude of, okay, here we go again. I think that's probably the wrong mentality to have. And I'm definitely still feeling a little bit sort of just tired and burned out and a little bit grumpy about how things went at the games this year for me. So I'm going to need to, either wait until an attitude adjustment happens or work on adjusting my attitude and then go from there.
All right.
Sure.
So when you talk about working on adjusting your attitude, what does that mean? Like, how would you go and adjust your attitude?
I just for a number of reasons feel like, it's just tough to sort of work your ass off all year and have a lot of ups and downs and definitely feel like I overcame a few things and was very happy and honored and grateful to make it to the games. But then after all of that, to sort of not have things go the way you want them or expect them to, it just kind of hurts your feelings a bit.
For sure.
And makes you wonder, or makes you question sort of, geez, like, why am I putting myself through this if I'm not sort of getting a tangible reward at the end of it?
Yeah.
So learning to sort of come back to the non-concrete rewards of it in terms of, having a positive impact on other people, having a great learning experience about how to train and improve either, biomechanically or programming or physiologically, because I like to sort of geek out on fitness stuff. So there's always learning opportunities there once the smoke sort of dies down, and then learning sort of to, appreciate victory in my effort and my personal striving, as opposed to whether or not I, win 5 points or 10 points or $100 or $1,000 after this or that.
So, I mean, there must be a hell of a lot of sort of self-evaluation that comes into it after the games, because, I mean, you think about a sport like CrossFit, and it's probably applicable to most sports, but when it's just you and it's just the individual, you're making it to the games. So you've definitely improved based on your performance of last year. I know you made it to the games last year as well, but as an athlete, you've gotten better.
Right.
And the pool of athletes has gotten better as well, and yet you're still not happy with where you are as a games athlete. Is that something you would look at, and you'd have a look at maybe your training could be adjusted here or there and little things as well?
I don't know. So most of the people that offer me advice or criticism or just observation about my training are really only offering advice or criticism about my performance or my physical activities at the games.
Yep.
So most people don't see what actually happens during the year. I train pretty well during the year. I achieve good improvements in fitness and skill. I've gotten a lot better at swimming, a lot better at running. And that's one of the things actually that I'm quite sore about, is that these improvements were not showcased at the games this year. Also in 2014, I got pretty mangled by the triple threes event, had to go to the hospital, stuff like that. I wasn't able to showcase the excellent year of training that I had behind me. And that's I think the part that's tough for me, is I have had a few years of very good training, very good improvement, and it hasn't quite been showcased. And I feel in my heart, and I feel like I see on paper that I am one of the top guys in the sport.
Sure.
And that just hasn't been, I guess, proven yet. So I need to either find a little bit of luck or make something different happen I guess peak might be a word you would use, to sort of peak at the right time. I mean, I obviously, taper and peak and sort of progress things to sort of hit a good stride in competition. But that doesn't always happen the way you want it to.
And so you feel like you haven't improved, or you haven't been able to showcase that relative to other competitors, or relative to your own performance? You don't feel like you've lived up to it? Okay,
Both.
right.
Yeah. And this could be a tricky situation in terms of making myself look arrogant, but there are a few events at the games this year that I definitely should have done a lot better on. It could have beat this guy and that guy and all that sort of thing. So when that finally happens, I think it'll be interesting, because I know the first question is going to be, what did you change? What did you change?
Yeah.
And I was like, no, this is kind of like what my potential has been for the past few years, but it just hasn't happened. And for whatever reason, I got lucky today. Like, sorry that I couldn't show you that last year.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, absolutely.
Lucas, can I ask you a question?
What have you been doing for the past 45 minutes?
What's that?
What have you been doing for the past 45 minutes?
What are you talking about?
Have you been asking him questions? Or?
Oh, yeah. So sorry.
You can ask another one if you
You
want.
can ask another one. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Sorry, you confused the shit out of
Am
me.
I allowed to be a podcasting host?
So, do you think... do you have any practices game day for the mental side of things? So before you actually go out on the event, because obviously you're saying everything's in place to perform really well.
Right.
Do you think it's a mindset thing, or what's your mental game like? Have you explored that? Obviously, you take some time. You said you meditate earlier with like. Have you looked into that?
Yeah, I think this year, as I mentioned earlier, had a lot more sort of ups and downs physically and mentally. And while I think being aware of that is a victory in and of itself. A lot of people just aren't able to sort of step back and objectively see their feelings kind of floating up and notice that I'm feeling stressed out or this isn't going well for me or whatever. So I can at least do that. But then dealing with that on top of it, especially when it comes up in a competition, is quite challenging and is hard to practice, because how many competitions do you do per year? Not very many. And how many of those competitions maybe don't go well for you, and you need to deal with adverse circumstances while not too many on top of that. So
Sure.
I think that just comes down to a practice thing, an awareness thing. So in terms of game day strategies, I think having just confidence in the year of training that an athlete has behind them is huge, and just taking a moment to remember all the hard work you've put in, all the excellent reps you've performed, all the progress you've made, and maybe the last week before the games, maybe you got sick, or maybe your ankle got sore or whatever, but you still have 10 10 to 12 months of excellent progress and hard work and dedication behind you, and that's not going to all disappear in the span of one event or a couple hours or a couple weeks.
Absolutely.
So I think a lot of athletes would do well to sort of take that sort of mentality, and just trust is a big one, right? And if you don't trust either your program or how you're eating, or if you don't trust yourself in terms of your experience and your strategy, that's going to be difficult. So accumulating experiences that you can trust during the year and then leaning on those in competition is something that I'm trying to work on.
And I guess sort of recognizing as well that it's about the journey. Is that a big thing for you? That a lot of athletes we talk to, they enjoy almost training more than they just do the competitive side to it. And I guess the competition side is just a way to measure how their training has been going, in a sense.
That's exactly, I've been saying that for years. It's like, I honestly don't even really like competing that much. I like the training side of things more. And it was like that in rugby in high school. We had a really great strength and conditioning coach. And we had, early morning lifting before school, and then we'd have, intervals and stuff after practice. And I loved all that stuff. I loved practice. I loved the skill work. I loved the lifting in the gym. And then games were fun as well. But it was like, I liked seeing, how my training impacted my game day performance. It's like, oh yeah, I feel, faster this week, or yeah, I really smashed that guy or whatever because I've been squatting heavy. And it's the same for me in CrossFit now. And that's one of the reasons, like I said earlier, I'm kind of sore about this year at the games. So it's like, oh, well, I feel like I trained pretty hard. I dealt with some adversity through the year, and unfortunately I didn't see a nice reflection of that in my result. So yeah, I'll still have to reinterpret that moving forward.
I think that's why, weightlifting and CrossFit, they're so attractive to people that love training and stuff, just because, the amount of training is just directly seen into how well you perform on the day. Like if you've just been doing a lot of muscle ups, you're just going to be better at muscle ups, and your weightlifting is the same thing. I want to talk about your mindset and some of the mindfulness techniques if you do that sort of stuff as well. I know you have a very unique routine when you're walking up to a bar and doing all that sort of stuff. What goes through your mind when you're doing that? And then what sort of some mental techniques that you do as well?
I don't know. I think I might have mental illness,
Yeah.
like OCD or something. Yeah. No, I mean, it's less of a routine and more of just I don't know, just a weird habit or mannerism, or and so and it changes all the time. So if I look back on how I would approach the bar sort of 5 years ago, it's much different than a few years ago, much different than this year. So a lot of it is just based on whatever weird thing is bugging me in my body right now. Like maybe I need to shake out my left shoulder to get my trapezius to relax, or maybe I need to jiggle my quads a bit so that I can feel like I can sink down to address the bar better. So it's always kind of changing based on that physically, and then also mentally what I use to sort of cue myself to sort of get fired up. So that might be yelling in a certain way, that might be grunting in a certain way, that might be slapping my back of my neck or my belly or my butt, or who knows what it's going to be a month from now, right? But yeah, I definitely there's definitely an entry to the bar. So the lift, and this is how I coach people, the lift doesn't begin when the bar breaks off the floor. The lift begins when you start approaching the bar. And that just sort of reinforces the fact that lifting has a lot of sort of mentality to it. There needs to be aggression, there needs to be focus, and just the right amounts of those.
That's a really, really often neglected piece, I think, with CrossFitters, especially amateur CrossFitters, is addressing the bar the same way, especially for heavy lifts.
The same way, yeah.
Because for me, it was always right foot, left foot, right hand, left hand, my bum would sink and I would lift. And then I went through a really good patch before I hurt my back a couple of years ago. And then I had about 6 months off with a couple of bulged discs. And then when I went to start lifting again, I couldn't get the same groove with my setup. I'd put my right foot under, my left foot under, my right hand, my left hand, and it just wouldn't feel the same. Right. I don't know why. Obviously, I just lost it. I hadn't done it for a while. And that mentally just fucked me up a little bit. I just didn't feel the confidence of automation. Right. That's how I like to feel. When I'm in a groove myself, I'm like, I'm on autopilot here. I do the same stuff, and I know this bar's going up over me. That's what at least I'm thinking.
Yeah.
And I think, you think of all the CrossFitters out there, especially that are.
But see, this is what I'm so interested in as well. I mean, you guys. I remember watching the 2013 games, and you would touch both sides of the plates, and then you'd grunt, and then you'd sort of shake your ass a little bit, and then you'd and lift. And when Bill walks up to a bar, he's shakes his arms out, and then he does like what he just said as well. Do you feel like if all of those things didn't happen, that you just would like you have to have the routine, or else you're screwed?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, especially when it comes to maximal effort or elite performance, it is. I think it comes back to like it's a trust thing and it's a confidence thing. Like I've done so many lifts before where I touch the plates on the side and wiggle my butt or whatever. And if that that's part of the lift essentially. So it's like and this isn't maybe what's happening consciously, but in your body, it's like, oh, okay, this is happening. Like I essentially am completing the lift. Like as soon as I step on the platform and I stomp my feet and I start touching the bar, like that is part of the snatch that I'm about to do or that I am doing. Like I'm doing the snatch right there, and it just carries through and the lift is complete. And somewhere in there, you've gripped the bar and you've pulled it over your head, but that's like the middle of the lift, really.
Yeah.
Like, and I think there's definitely there's a huge motor learning and sort of body memory aspect to that. Aside from any like mentality or whatever, it's like okay, this is happening. Like this is the lift.
Sure.
I got a mate Liam who's Australia representative. He's pretty much number one in Australia, although he just busted his elbow, so he's been out for a few months. And Liam approaches the bar, and he'll come out from the warm up room, and he'll be going, rah, rah,
yeah.
He'll give probably 5 or 6 grunts, go up to the chalk bowl. He'll grunt 3 or 4 more times. He'll get on the platform, stomps both feet, grabs the bar, does all this stuff, shakes his left elbow, shakes his left arm.
Yeah.
And to anybody who hasn't seen Liam lift 100 times, they'd be like, "Fuck! Look at all this crazy stuff this is doing. He's got no idea. He's grunting here. He's shaking this. He's doing this." Every single time, it's the exact same.
Yeah.
Grunts and all.
That's awesome.
And I think that's just you need to get with weightlifting especially.
Oh, with weightlifting especially.
With weightlifting especially, it's just you got wins that you have to get.
Yeah.
It's such a mental. If you can get an absolute carbon copy version of something that you're 100% comfortable doing, and that's a win.
Right.
Before you put the bar up, if you're not that confident with how you've been training, then you might have something in the back of your mind that's, I'm not feeling that confident with this lift. But if you've gone through the exact same routine, that might overpower that thought. We might give you that little bit of edge. But it's, for me, routine and setting up is a little win that I can get, no matter if I'm training well or training badly.
Yeah. Did you watch any of the Olympics? You watch any of the 100-meter stuff with Usain Bolt?
Yeah.
So he's the same. He does the exact same thing before he gets set up in the blocks and starts the race, right? I forget the exact routine, but it involves shaking out the legs, jumping a couple times.
Looking cool as fuck.
He kisses a cross on his necklace, and then he wags his finger up at the sky, and then he gets down the blocks. And there was a false start in one of the races, so he did that whole thing. Everyone gets set up. Boom, false start. Everyone walks back. He does the exact same thing again.
Really?
After the false start. And okay, that's not for God. Like God didn't forget about you in 10 seconds. You don't need to ask him for help again. Like that's for Usain. And that's part of the routine. And if he's going to win the race, that he's won races by doing that thing before, then that's how he's going to win the race this time too.
Yeah. I guess my only issue with it is when I'm, from a coaching perspective, when I'm coaching my members. And like you said before, it's more for when you're going for maximal weight that you should have these sort of motor patterns. But CrossFit's different. We can approach the bar under time stress, and we don't have the time to go through all that sort of stuff. Is that something you take into consideration?
Yeah, definitely. Especially in the early years of CrossFit, I maybe had the luxury of resting a little more, taking my time, because I was able to sort of make up that with good power output. But these days, if you're not working during the workout, you're falling behind, especially at the games. So there's really the days of strategic rest and moving slow are pretty much over. So you need to be able to address the bar quickly, set up quickly, and it's usually in a scenario where the weights are light enough where you're hopefully not going to hurt yourself by setting up quickly. But you still need to get in a good position for efficiency and power and injury prevention. So you watch an athlete let's say Rich. So when he's doing say snatching a bar and dropping it and snatching a bar and dropping it, you can see he falls into a good routine of, drop the bar, maybe step back one, step forward one hand, the other hand. Usually like his hips sink and back sets at the same time as the second hand goes on the bar, and then the lift begins. So he's minimized any wiggling or time spent, down there. It's like the hands are on, the back is set, the bar lifts. So especially now that CrossFit is including some like speed ladders with the I forget what the first one was, but it was maybe the games a couple years ago. There was like a speed clean ladder.
Yeah.
At regionals, there was a muscle ups into a speed clean ladder. That was a cool event. And then there was obviously this. It wasn't necessarily a speed ladder, but regionals this year there was that snatch. I guess you call it ladder, snatch ladder, and then there was the same clean ladder this year with the 30 reps.
Yeah.
And so it's not necessarily a speed ladder, but you still need quick setups. You still need efficiency on the bar. The weights for the first few bars are light enough where you can, make up time there by just like setting up quickly. So that's now part of the sport.
For sure.
Is addressing the bar quickly and having a routine for that involves very little routine.
How much time do you practice actual, like, let's say you get 30 cleans as fast as humanly possible? Like, barbell cycling technique work is what I mean. Do you put any time and effort into that?
Yes, but I'd say those two examples are a little bit different. Like 30 cleans as fast as humanly possible, that's more like an event. That's like game day performance where, technique might fall off in favor of performance. Whereas like actually like practicing barbell cycling, I think for most people, the standard format is going to be some form of EMOM. Maybe you're doing like, 6 to 8 reps at a time with like a minute rest or whatever, so that over the span of your session or over the span of that piece, maybe you accumulate 30, 40, 50 reps of work, and they're all at an excellent tempo and speed and technique. Whereas if you look at doing 30 or 40 reps straight through, it's going to start your first, half maybe, or more like 10 to 15 reps are going to look really nice, and they're going to look a lot different than your final reps.
Yeah.
And that's going to happen, but in terms of like acquiring the skill, you're going to want to sort of avoid that as best you can, and accumulate as much quality and consistency and intensity. And you have to design your session accordingly, whether that means you need an EMOM or set rest or fixed sets or whatever you want to do. Or
I just like I look at a few of the grid athletes and the stuff that they're doing, and you look at the training. I know that those guys must be training, say, like for a games athlete, maybe a 60 kilo clean, and I saw some techniques that people were doing and some speed training that they were doing that was just, I need to move this barbell as physically as humanly possible, as fast as I can move it as humanly possible. And I even saw things like people that need to do thrusters taking the bar from the ground. They're already in the squat and they stand it up from there, like little tiny intricacies that are like just designed for speed. Is that becoming more prevalent? Because a lot of these grid athletes that are CrossFit athletes as well are getting this training in because they want to be a grid athlete.
Right.
I know that there's a lot of that part. Is that taken into account at all for you? Or so what you're talking about, sub-maximal, 80% kind of, is that what you mean when you're talking about the EMOM stuff to be working fast?
I think that's, in terms of like skill acquisition, that's where you're going to get the most bang for your buck. And in terms of performance in CrossFit, I think that's also the largest aspect of it, or you're going to get the biggest impact in your performance. If you start a workout with a bunch of thrusters, sure, the guy who like curls the bar off the ground into a squat is maybe going to make up a second in the start of the workout. But if he hasn't been doing like rigorous energy system training and barbell cycling practice, that second is going to get lost in the handful of breaks that he's taking compared to the other guy.
Yeah. I didn't mean that in particular. I just meant as an example of like the way that it's turning for speed rather than...
Yeah, so then to extrapolate from that specific example, I think, CrossFit surprises me all the time. So as soon as I say it's going one way, it goes the other way. But I think now with the existence of grid, CrossFit and grid have to be different. Otherwise, they're the same thing, where they're two competitions doing the same thing. So it seems like, grid is going to be more the I don't know what you want to call it, like the drag racing, the circus performance, like the really complex skills, crazy fast, crazy heavy, like go. they're not going to be doing half marathon rows. They're
No.
not going to be doing trail runs. They're not going to be doing swimming. So CrossFit, I think, is maybe going to obviously include some tests of explosiveness and intense skill, as we saw some of that stuff at the games.
Mm-hmm.
But again, over the span of a competition, the meat of your performance is going to come from just, doing well in Metcons.
Yeah.
And that's less about, the very, very small details, which undoubtedly are important. But if you only have a X amount of time to work on
that's
things
right.
during the year, it's going to come from just consistency of practice and training and conditioning, I think.
You got to triage your work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Totally.
Gotcha.
Some people call it programming, other people call it triage.
Yeah. So what do you think about grid? Personally, I think I haven't watched much of it since the first year, to be perfectly honest. But I know the basic tenets of it.
Because
I
now
see
you
it
have
still.
to pay to watch it, I guess, which is great because that means they're making money for the athletes.
Yeah, I love that side of it 100%. The fact that they want to try and get a professional sport, get it on big TV, big stadiums. That's fantastic, no doubt in my opinion. The actual sport itself is interesting, but I think the thing that it lacks, which is why I don't think it will ever get to as popular as CrossFit or never catch up, is that I think it lacks the fact that with CrossFit, you're watching humans suffer. Mm-hmm. And you can relate to the pain that they're going through. They're like, fuck me, imagine what this guy's going through. Imagine what that chick's like. Whereas grid, it's like, yeah, we all know you can move fast in a team. Like, that's cool. We've seen that stuff done before. It doesn't impress me. It's not as relatable. Whereas if you're seeing someone grind through the pain of the CrossFit Games and Murph in the sun, and you're like, whoa, this is really pushing human performance, which grid is too, but it's like I don't feel like it's the same.
Interesting. I've got a bit of a different take on it. I agree with you that it's not the same. I agree with you that the appeal is not quite equivalent. You might say that's just because one sport is already more established, has a bigger viewership, whatever. But I think it's as simple as like team versus individual. I think individual sports are always more appealing, always more interesting. Because there's a suffering aspect of it, but it's like there's the personality. Like there's that guy.
Yeah.
He's going through it from start to finish. I'm relating to him. I'm cheering for him. Whatever. Whereas grid is a team, and obviously athletes going through one at a time. But like I think in terms of like the movements that are happening, grid is far more exciting. Right, the movements are more complex, more interesting. You don't have to watch anyone sit on a rowing machine for an hour. But yeah, I think it's just the individual versus team aspect, right? You get more latched on, more committed to individual personalities as opposed to those of a group. And even if you look at team sports, like, you maybe, well, I don't know. I don't watch a lot of team sports, but you probably care less about, say, the Chicago Bulls as a whole and more about Michael Jordan.
Well, I
right?
barrack for LeBron James. Okay. I've always said that. People are like, oh, who? Because I always put posts up on Facebook about LeBron and this and that. And then when he went from Cleveland to Miami, people are like, oh, I bet you fucking go for Miami now. And I'm like, nah, I still go for LeBron James.
Right.
And that's for me. Because when you were making that example, I was like, yeah, that kind of makes sense. But why don't we watch one-on-one basketball as compared to team basketball? But when you relate it to the fact that everyone's following the San Antonio Spurs because of kind of Tim Duncan, maybe, or maybe it's their hometown, but like Tim Duncan. Kobe Bryant, that's why he followed the Lakers. The Lakers are shit now. They're probably not, all those bandwagoners aren't probably following the Lakers because they don't have Kobe Bryant. They don't have that person.
And they don't know all the names of all the players on the team. Probably.
Yeah, just really
do, but
up and about over that one particular person. Just anecdotally, ever since Hawthorn is a team that I go from the AFL, and when Shane Crawford retired, who was like a huge role model for me, I definitely can like pinpoint the time that my love of Hawthorn, I still have a big love for it, but my love of Hawthorn started to slowly drop a little bit. That's really interesting you mentioned that.
Yeah. My love of basketball in general stopped dead when Michael Jordan retired. I'm like, well, I'm not going to watch basketball anymore.
Yeah, that's right.
That's what I said. And then
Space Jam reruns.
And then
excellent.
And then
Excellent film. It's a film.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
then LeBron
historical viewing film.
Historical document.
Yeah, it's historical. It's better than the Bible.
Then LeBron came into the basketball, and the only reason I started watching basketball again was because people said, this guy's the next Michael Jordan, this guy's the next Michael Jordan, and I latched myself onto him, and it dragged me back into basketball. So, that's interesting, the way to think about it. You got any news for us, Tommy?
Ooh, I've got some news. I've got some GBS here, the good, the bad, the science. So, Mr. Parker, my friend, we're going to move through something good that happened with the current event. something bad and then something sciencey, and I'm pumped about the science. So
Okay.
see how we go.
What if our opinions differ between the good and the bad?
Well,
Like, are we going to talk about Donald Trump and we're going to have an argument about...
we just
Yeah, that's
fight it
true.
out like men.
We'll just fight it
Lucas.
out. We'll probably,
Isn't
we'll
it- isn't it-
we'll punch each other a little bit.
Isn't that
I'll
obvious?
pull your beard. You can pull my leg. It'll all happen.
All right.
All right. So they're good. Some lucky woman just won $10.7 million off a penny slot machine. A Hawaiian woman won nearly $11 million on a penny slot machine in Las Vegas, the Associated Press reported. The unidentified lucky duck, or goose, from Oahu received $10,777,270.51 payout Sunday night at the Wynn Las Vegas after placing a $3 bet in that penny slot machine. Now, my question to you guys is, if you won this money, what is the very first thing you would do straight off the bat? Lucas, what do you reckon?
Probably cry and just freak out.
Yeah.
Like, I've seen a lot of these. I love watching these reality shows where people win money and then their lives just like fall apart. And it's like, it's interesting seeing how people react and how they're, not even how they react, how the people around them react. And it's actually really depressing that, like, someone, they'll win whatever, $10 million or whatever. And all of a sudden their like closest friends and family their relationships just like dissolve. And it looks really stressful to win a lot of money. So
It does,
I
doesn't
probably
it?
wouldn't tell people, or I would donate half of it, or I would do something to kind of like just kill some of that pressure.
How much was it again? $100
$10 million.
$10 million.
I'd probably buy $4,000 worth of cocaine, and then I would. It's so true though.
Just go down to the Coke and Hooker store. And
Go to the hooker store. Well, I mean, there's just one just off Bank Street. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, really?
There's
Not that I've been
there's
there.
about 100 around here, actually.
Yeah, it would
This is
be.
the Coke and Hooker store capital of Melbourne.
That's very true.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. You've got the next buy, don't you?
Sorry?
You've got the next buy, don't you?
Sure.
Bill, what would you do?
That one joke was just that a little bit too far.
Yeah, that's right.
What would I do? 10 million. 1 million's easy, I think, because $1 million you could,
Right.
invest half of it in a house. You've got that covered. You'd spend $50,000 and go on a sick holiday with a couple of your mates. That's what I'd do with 1 million.
Yeah.
10 million, you got to think a little bit more. You got to, like Lucas said, you got to probably give something back to someone. Maybe give half of it away. I don't know. When you actually get the money, though, it's funny because everyone probably says what we say.
Yeah.
You give half it away,
Oh,
but it'd
yeah.
be interesting to know how many people actually follow through with giving any of it away.
That's right.
Who knows?
I think, a lot of people, especially when people start asking them for money, they're like, well, I have all this money, so they'll just fuck off and like start a new life.
Yeah.
And I've seen a couple documentaries about that. Like the whole, does money equal happiness thing? Like, I think it's to an extent, right? If you can afford to like feed and clothe yourself well, live in a nice location, have some fun recreation, like anything beyond that is probably extremely stressful. Especially if you,
Totally.
get yourself a nice like $1 million car and then you can't drive it anywhere because you're worried about it getting scratched.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of people I think that would be that are so rich out there in the world that I think it would be very, very negative. Like the rich and famous. Fuck being. I'm talking like really, really super, super rich and super, super famous.
Super famous.
That's like the last thing that I would
Oh,
ever
you wouldn't want it. Justin Bieber's life would be shit ass, man. It'd be tough. It'd be tough.
Bieber's got the Bieberettes,
Yeah, that's true. He's got the Bieberettes, yeah. That's true. I want to be Justin Bieber now.
But yeah, you see.
He's a Canadian. mates with-
No, don't mention that, please. Yeah, you see these people having breakdowns and stuff, and you definitely feel for them because
Totally.
I think at the end of the day, we're all, we're all just dudes. Like, very few people are born and grow up, say, famous and in the public eye. So most people, it sort of happens to them, or they make it happen at some point in their life, and then there's that shift from being like a normal person who does normal things to still a normal person who does normal things, but who the entire rest of the universe thinks is somehow special or unique or different, and then treats you differently. So that probably causes a lot of weird mental stuff that I can't even imagine.
But also, too, I mean, everyone goes through shit in their life, and it just happens for them that it could be relatively normal. It's just in the public eye, so everyone sees it, and then it's just billboarded into even much of a bigger issue. I think the first thing I would do was I'd put the amount of money off the $10 million into an account where I know that I can just survive just off interest for the rest of my life, and then I just give the rest away. He's done.
There's a funny... Did you listen to the Sam Harris podcast I was talking about the other day about effective altruism with Will McCaskill?
I did listen to that, yeah.
That was really interesting. A really good listen, which talked about how much money it costs to save a life. Actually, I think we talked about another podcast. We don't probably need to go on it too much, but it costs like $3,500 to save a life in Africa. So with $10 million, you could do a lot of good, but we don't need a... We've already talked about it.
The man, roof jumper gets wedged between buildings trying to impress a girl. Face it, we've all done something stupid to impress someone we like. With that in mind, try to sympathise with Grant Birdsong. Even just the last name, you'd find very hard to sympathise with him. The 22-year-old university student from Pittsburgh reportedly was attempting to woo a lady when he leaped between two buildings around 2 a.m. last Tuesday.
God.
The young man met a girl, brought her up to a rooftop, and decided to impress her by leaping from one roof to the next. That was a quote from a spokeswoman from the Pittsburgh Public Safety. I know when I'm trying to impress a woman, I probably wouldn't jump out of a roof.
Right.
But my question to you guys was, what is the most embarrassing thing you guys have done or that's happened to you when you've tried to impress a girl or someone in general?
Oh, man, I'll have to think about that for a moment.
I've got one.
It can't be the one where you jumped out naked into a tree.
I've got one.
Go for it.
So I was at a house party about 4 years ago, and I remember just having like heaps of fun. I remember it being really, really... You know if you're out having beers and stuff, there'll be times when you're like, I'm having a good time, this is good. There'll be times when you're like, this is a bit of a shit night. There's times where you're like, I'm on tonight.
This is fun.
Everything's just awesome. Every interaction's just silly. And anyway, I was at a house party.
It's a direct relationship to how much drugs you've had during the night.
Anyway,
1, 2, 3, I'm on.
I was at this house party, and I don't remember too much of what went on, but I remember the start of the night. It was really, really fun. I was having a good time. Beer pong was going on. All my mates were around.
Good.
I remember being on the dance floor a little bit, and then I don't remember anything else. But what I know what happened because there was people around that can tell me what happened. So I remember hanging around with the sister of one of my friends. She was like kind of cute or whatever. Maybe I was trying to hook up with her. Maybe I already was. I don't actually know.
Shaking heads already.
But I remember starting to hang out with her a little bit.
Tommy's sister?
Hey, come on.
Tommy does have a sister too.
Yeah.
It was her actually. But,
You told me you were just hanging out with me.
So what happened was, I've walked into the dance floor, and I've got to preface this story by, do you remember the CrossFit video that showed Rich Froney and Dan Bailey getting challenged to a backflip workout?
Oh, yeah.
No.
So it was made by CrossFit HQ, and when that came out, me and my brother were watching it.
Here we go.
And I said to Jack, mate, have a look at this. He had a look at it. I said, we need to start adult gymnastics. We need to be walking on our hands like they're our feet, and we need to be doing backflips. And so anyway, a week later, I'm at my mum and dad's house, and I fell asleep on the couch, and I hear this, I can hear this doof, doof, doof out in the backyard. I'm like, what the fuck's that noise? I open the window, and Jack's in the backyard doing backflips. Straight backflips, landing on his feet.
Really?
Yeah, my brother's got he held the Stingray's record for vertical jump. Like, he's just a freak athlete.
Yeah.
And he taught himself how to do backflips. So I'm like, fucking hell, that's sick.
Yeah.
Anyway, so back to this party. So I'm hanging around with this girl who I was trying to impress. I'm up and about, having a real good time. And so the boys have filled me in as to what actually happened. So I've walked onto the dance floor in this at this house party, and it was in a garage, and it had a polished concrete, or just a concrete floor.
Yeah.
Concrete floor. And I've walked in, and I literally gave it the clear out.
Yeah.
Clear out.
For everyone at home,
I'm
Bill's
on here.
standing up right now. We're about to get a demonstration here.
So I cleared everyone out of the dance floor, and then I said, watch this. And middle of the dance floor, crouched down and gone for the backflip. And as I've gone for it, apparently because it's a party, so the floor is just soaked with booze.
Oh, yeah.
So I've gone for the backflip, and I've just slipped, and my feet have gone out from under me. And my feet have gone up super, super slow, and I've just come down straight on top of my head and knocked myself out cold.
Yeah. Oh, my God.
What happened after that? Dude. I was unresponsive for 43 minutes.
Really?
So I shat my pants, pissed myself. The party killed the party, as you can imagine. The party was over.
Dude.
So I was responsive. You know, they say, when you're in an ambulance, they say, squeeze my finger, 43 minutes after the incident. So they had to Penny, my best chick mate, she came in the ambulance with me. She had to call my mum and dad and say that he's predicted to be spinal and brain damage. Because if you're out for 43 minutes, you're You can.
Oh,
Fuck
yeah,
it, that's how you get brain damage.
That's how you,
you know?
Plus alcohol involved as well.
Yeah, and
You'd be on the express ticket to shit town.
yeah. So I woke up the next day and Penny filled me in on what happened, and I ended up being fine. But I've told you about it before, I think, because
How's that? Just ended up being fine.
Well, is he really fine though?
Yeah, that's true. That's very true.
True. So that was pretty silly of me. But it gave me really bad anxiety for months because I had the headache, but also because the day before was my mate John McCarthy, who played for Port Adelaide, who killed himself jumping off a roof trying to impress someone in Las Vegas.
Dude. But the big question is, did you get the girl?
Well, I may have had the girl.
Yeah.
And then I shat my pants
And
on
then
the
you
dance
shat
floor.
pants. And you probably got her even more.
Yeah.
Lucas?
Did you have one?
I don't think I can top that. I mean, the first one that came to mind is, and this might be why I have such a preoccupation with like plays on words now, actually. But anyway, so it was. I was going to my high school, so this was like the 8th grade or middle school or something. It was kind of, there was like a meet and greet up in this pavilion, and the school was the locals could attend, but it was also a boarding school. So it was a boarding school, but I lived in town and went to the school. Anyway, so there's a girl there, and everyone was sort of mixing and mingling, and she said, "Oh hey," like, and we were talking. She's like, "Are you a boarder? Are you a boarder?" And I was like, well, like I grew up skiing, but I switched to boarding. I thought it was a little cooler. I want to hit some jumps and stuff. She's like, "Oh, I mean, like, were you like a boarding student?" I was like, "Oh, fuck."
Killed yourself straight away.
Yeah. So that was embarrassing for me, and perhaps explains the complex I have with double entendres at this point in my life.
Well,
How old were you at the time?
Oh, that was, I don't know, 8th grade, so that was...
That would have been crippling in the 8th grade.
15, right? No,
that would have been life's over.
It's 14, 15.
It's just hilarious that you haven't learned from your mistakes. Like, I was freaking out when I was playing at the Tribute and you started talking about Las Vegas. It's like, it's Nirvana, man. Come on. Give me some love. All right, we'll move on to the
That's
science.
funny, actually. Yeah. I forgot about that.
Yeah. It's like, look, I've been to Las Vegas. I mean, Nevada's quite nice. But like,
You know what you should do is you should cut this story in at the front of the show and then have that
put
happen.
it back there.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Earth-like exoplanet discovered in the nearest star system to our own. A truly breathtaking new nature study has dramatically revealed that a second home may exist just over 4 light years away in the Alpha Centauri triple star system. This new world dances around the red dwarf star Proxima Centauri, which is the closest star to our own sun. Dubbed Proxima b, this exoplanet was discovered after painstaking years of analysis of the tiny movements of its host star in response to the gravitational pull of the planet itself. By picking apart these stellar wobbles, estimates of the planet's mass and physical parameters could be made. Now, based on the temperature of the planet, this is a very significant possibility for the planet to have water. And as we know from our own pale blue dot, this is where there's water, there is life. My question to you, gentlemen, is if there is planet on this life, and maybe I always do this.
Do you mean life on this planet?
Yes. That's very true. If there is planet on this life, guys, geez, I probably do mean what you said there, and therefore potentially intelligent life. Why haven't they tried to contact us yet?
Well, there was perhaps a related news story. Maybe a couple of weeks ago, I heard on the radio that some agency, somebody picked up a signal. Someone picked up some signal, and they've been calling for NASA or whoever to permanently monitor it.
SETI. They called for SETI to permanently monitor it.
Yeah?
Yeah, SETI's the search for extraterrestrial intelligence.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, NASA called SETI. I know what you're talking about.
Oh, so you heard about that as well.
Wow.
So that might be related, but it might have been a butt dial in a sense, in that they're like, "Oh no, shit, didn't mean to call them." Like,
Yeah, that's right.
you know, I think.
Oh, sorry, mate. Sorry, you're my 1 o'clock.
Exactly. No, I think it's a.
Sorry, I was calling Alpha. My bad.
Yeah.
It's pretty easy to say, like, with all the weird shit going on in the world and how the human species is like just destroying the pale blue dot and killing each other and all sorts of stuff. Like, if anyone's out there observing it, they're kind of like, well, maybe let's let this die down. It's like, when you're over at your friend's house for dinner and and they start arguing with your wife, with their wife, and you kind of just wait in the kitchen, and then you come back when it's over, and you're like, oh, so
That's true, yeah.
dessert now, or like, so how about those Blue Jays? Or how about the
Well, Joe Rogan has got that really famous theory that he reckons that our world looks like cancer to someone out there, like just where we're getting rid of all the green, just putting buildings up, and it's just spreading like wildfire to make this fucking shit fest. But there's a lot of I think that's the technical term for it. But there's tons of theories. Bill, do you have something to say on this?
Nah, not really. I think I think one of the reasons is why we haven't heard from these civilizations, because we interviewed Seth Shostak from SETI, Lucas, who's the guy who runs the SETI Institute Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence.
Cool.
It was sick.
It must have been a good interview.
Yeah, it was great. It was really interesting. But one of the things is, like, you look at modern humans. So modern humans have been around 200,000 years. We've been sending radio signals out for 50 of them.
Right.
So
Maybe even longer. Or is it 50?
No, it's actually longer than
Right.
that. But like, say 100 or 150. I'm not. Don't quote me on that.
Yeah.
But no more than 200 years have we been able to reach out to people. And the other thing is, so that's like, it takes a long time to get to civilization, to somewhere where you can actually send signals out to anyone.
Oh,
and the other
100%.
things are Jupiter saves us from getting just peppered by asteroids. Like civilizations out in outer space, who knows how long they actually stay around for before. Space is a shit show, man.
Oh, yeah.
There's fucking too much going on, like solar flare. I don't know.
Yeah, those Star Wars documentaries are like off the hook. Right?
yeah, that's so true. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's an assumption. It's a big assumption to even start with that, like, I think, well, it's probably safe to assume that there's life of some sort out there, just based on numbers and size and whatever. But it's a pretty big anthropomorphic assumption to assume that, if this life can communicate, that it assumes the same form or style of communication as we do.
100%.
Maybe they're sending out, we might not even be able to conceptualize the type of communication.
The signal.
I want to say something like different types of radio waves, but even that is too locked within the human concept and understanding of how things communicate. So that's
probably almost very arrogant to an extent to say that because we're intelligent, they want to see us.
Right.
Yeah, that's right. There's definitely aliens out there, though.
I'm sure there are.
High probability, yeah.
Hey guys, so that's the first part of our show with Lucas. Really good show. Hope you guys got a bunch out of it. Lucas is actually doing seminars for Australian listeners on midweek this week on Wednesday, I believe, at CrossFit Torian, and then he's competing in the Torian Pro. So
Correct.
Head to check out Lucas Parker's website.
Check out his social medias.
Check out his social medias.
He's up to date on his Insta.
And Google Lucas Parker. You'll find what he's doing. He's in Australia for a limited time doing seminars on barbell work and competing in the Torian Pro. So make sure you check that out. Also, if you like the show, subscribe.
Please.
You got anything to say about that?
Rate and review. Give us a rate and review.
Rate and review.
Yeah. It's on iTunes, guys. Give us 5 stars. Even if you didn't think we were 5 stars, it all helps. And then a simple review, a little, Tom and Bill's so funny. That Tom guy's so cute. I just want to,
I just want to on his Hamas.
Just write something like that, guys. It helps the show. And we will speak to you.
Wait. And thanks to our sponsors, True Pride.
Yes.
True Pride. Guys, check out True Pride if you want to crunch your budget and get everything working in your favour with your money. You should be able to save, on average, $150 a week.
Yep.
That's $600 a month for the cost of $97 a month. The joining fee will be waived if you head to www.pride.com.au/AWF radio. Mm-hmm. AWF, sorry, no radio. Mm-hmm. And Carve, guys, if you want to get your life back, get a VA over in the Philippines through Carve. These guys are awesome. And it will save you a lot of time and a lot of money. You'll get your life back working with these guys. We're also brought to you by Adventure for Travel, www.adventurefortravel.com. See you next week.
Discovery Roger, go for deploy.